Section 3, we are on Chapter 1. This video lecture is going to look at Section 3 and Section 4. Hopefully this one is a little bit better than the last one. Rewatching that one was a little bit painful. I'm hoping as I continue to do these each week, I get better and better. We can hope. So Section 3 is going to look at the foundations of government. And the foundation's kind of like what holds us up where it started. The United States, when we're looking at our nation's history and kind of looking at the formation of our government system, it goes all the way back to Plymouth, Massachusetts, when the Pilgrims first put foot on this land. And on their way here on the ship, they pretty much came up with the Mayflower Compact, which meant that everybody agreed to obey the laws that were enacted by the group. This is our nation's first example of a government. The people come together, they make rules, and they're promising to follow and obey these. That right there is kind of laying the foundation for our nation's history. All right, in general though, government has three main purposes. Okay, this is what makes us strong. The three main purposes are order, protection, and public goods. So like the signers of the Mayflower Compact, throughout the United States, we have different groups, whether it's Republican or Democrats, but we all feel the need for some sort of government. Government serves many purposes, and among the most important are maintaining public order, protecting life and property, and providing public goods. Let's first look at public goods. Some examples of public goods today would be schools, the roads we travel on to get to school, the fire and police protection that we all enjoy. Some more examples of public goods are going to be a national park, and also just the safe feeling that you have knowing that we have armed forces to protect us. They are an example of public good. So public goods have two key characteristics, and one being that just because one person uses it, it doesn't mean that it's now not available for everybody else. So the example that I give here on the slide is street lamps. Just because one person walks under that street lamp, it doesn't reduce the ability of others to use that light. The second one is once a public good is made available, all people have the right to use it. And after being installed, a street lamp shines its light and it's there for everybody. Okay, so now let's move on to the building blocks of government, which are coercion and revenue collection. So governments throughout history have had two key powers that are essential for providing protection and public goods. And these two building blocks of government are one, the means of coercion, and two, the means of collecting revenue. Coercion refers to the various ways in which government can use its power to force citizens to behave in certain ways. The most obvious means of coercion include the police, the courts, and the prison system. Governments use the threat of arrest and punishment to maintain public order and keep people secure in their homes and in public spaces. Other means of coercion relate to the involuntary services required of citizens. One example is conscription, or also known as a military draft, and this is in which governments compel young men and women to serve in the armed forces. Another involuntary, which means you don't really want to do it, service is jury duty. And this is a panel of citizens decide an accused person's guilt or innocence. The second building block of government is a means of collecting revenue. Revenue's money, income, profits. All governments need money to provide security and pay for the public goods. They generally get that money from the people they govern or control. The ways governments collect revenues have varied historically. And within the reading, there's some examples that you're going to want to make sure you take a look at. So, who should rule, and should it be one person, should it be a small group of people, the few, or should it be many? And in early history, most were headed or ruled by a single ruler. And this was believed to be the best form of rule by the ancient philosopher Aristotle. When the United States was deciding what type of rule we would have, they used Aristotle's beliefs and his writings to help guide us. And he strongly influenced the way that we thought and what we came up with. Okay, so talking about the governments of the modern nation states, well, let's first look at what a nation state is, and let's kind of define it. All nation states have four characteristics that make them a nation state. They have territorial integrity, which is a nation state occupies a specific geographical territory with internationally recognized boundaries. The second characteristic is we have a stable population. A nation state has people living permanently within its boundaries. The third characteristic that defines it as a nation state would be a code of laws. The people of a nation state agree to live under a common legal system. The fourth and final characteristic of a nation state that defines it would be national sovereignty, which means that a nation state is independent and self-governing, so no outside influences. It's a fairly modern political phenomenon, and it merges two concepts, the nation and the state. A nation is a group of people who share a common ethnic origin, culture, and language, and a state is a geographical area controlled by a single government. The governments of modern nation states are quite varied. In some, power is concentrated in the hands of one or a very few powerful leaders. In others, like the United States, power comes from the people and is broadly distributed throughout the government. All right, that was section 3. Now we're going to move on to section 4, which kind of looks at politics and political activity. I'm not going to go too in depth with this one. Make sure you read up on it in the reading packet, and I'll kind of cover the key points. So political activity has a very strong purpose, and it can range from looking at a political cartoon, which we all love to do, or to running for a public office. Some political actions take little effort, others require a significant amount of time, money, and effort, and even courage. No matter how simple or difficult, political activity is purposeful and it is done for a reason. Let's consider this situation. A city council is contemplating a proposal to build a new skateboard park in the community. Most residents care about children and want them to have recreational opportunities. For that reason alone, they at least follow the issue in the local newspaper. They might also discuss it with friends or coworkers. Some citizens, however, are motivated to look more deeply into this proposal. One group concerned that construction and insurance costs might cause their taxes to go up, speak out against the proposal at a city council meeting. Another group, believing that the skateboard park will make the town more attractive for young families, speak up in support. Prompted by their enthusiasm for the park proposal, a group of skaters and parents become more actively involved. Some seek appointment to a study group that is reviewing the proposal. One parent even decides to run for a seat on the city council in the next election. For these citizens, the possible benefits of becoming politically active outweighs the costs in time, effort, and resources. As this example suggests, political activity is intentional, not random. That is, people think through what they are trying to achieve and weigh the costs and benefits of the actions needed to achieve their goals. We are lucky to live in a country where we are allowed to take part in the political process and do different types of political activities that may benefit ourselves, our community, or our country. Okay, political activity also involves a collection action. Individuals can achieve many of their goals by acting on their own, but political activity is collective. It involves working with others to achieve shared goals. And as the late American anthropologist Margaret Mead once wrote, institutions shape political activity. I must have forgot to put the quote of what she wrote, so that will not be a test question. But let's talk about institutions, what they are, and how they shape political activity. Institutions are like groups, different organizations, and they have a great influence on political activity. Institutions are organizations that have sets of rules that shape the behavior of these groups. They have a social purpose and a permanence in the human affairs. The family is an ancient institution. Its purpose now, as long ago, is to provide for physical and emotional well-being of its members, schools, hospitals, and governments. Institutions establish routines for dealing with recurring problems. They establish rules, both written and unwritten, that help shape political activities. Whoa, what'd I do? Oh, Lordy. Oh, Well, that just ends that section. So that covers section 3, which is the foundations of our government. And then we had section 4, which covers politics and the political activity in which we can all participate in. And we'll participate in this semester through your political meeting project and your political action project you're going to do at some point throughout the semester. So again, any questions, make sure you email me, and you'll be able to watch the lectures on section 5 and 6 when you are ready and at your convenience.